This episode of Sewing Out Loud is brought to you by the Made to Measure Leggings class from sewhere.com. This online class brings ZD right into your sewing room to show you how to measure, draft, and construct a pair of leggings based on your personal measurements. Go to sewhere.com/leggings to find out more and get access to all the videos and course materials immediately. That's sewhere.com/leggings.
Welcome to Sewing Out Loud, the official podcast of ZD Sewing Studio. Here are your hosts, ZD and Mallory.
Sewing Out Loud. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mallory Donahue.
I'm ZD Donahue.
And today we're going to do a little Q&A. We have a Facebook group called the Self Sewn Wardrobe Facebook group. A lot of you are in it. And then hopefully by the time this is published, I've caught up on approvals. It takes a little while to get caught up. We get a lot of requests and got some questions, and I got to go through and make sure everybody's...
And then we got to do other projects.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully everybody's in it who wants to be in it right now.
And then we have to make s'mores by the pond.
Okay.
We did that this summer.
Yeah.
Or summer. Weekend. Jeez, I don't know.
Okay.
Wanting summer really bad right now.
Yeah, it would be nice. It's real crappy outside right now. All right, so we've got question and answer from the group. And our first question, I love this question. I used to enjoy explaining this to people when they came into the shop, like for their sit-down deliveries. And like looking back, I think that was probably too much information. People, but whatever.
You were overloading them with
ready
with your knowledge.
I'm ready to give them the spiel again. Okay. So I'm so glad that Rory, who has been a longtime supporter of sewhere.com, thank you, Rory. She says, I have a question on sewing machine straight stitch needle position. What is the standard needle position? Left needle position or center needle position? I ask because I believed it to be center, but what position is considered standard for the seam allowance marking on my machine? And then she says that she got a new machine and
it opens up on the left.
It opens up on the left.
Right.
She's like, is that standard? Okay, so let's talk about it.
Let me just say one thing here, and then I want you to talk about it. I want to hear your explanation. But center used to be the standard, okay?
Yeah,
like these certain things can change, and this has changed because of technology.
Yep.
Okay, and because of our ability to change it. Now, it used to be that we only had a straight stitch machine, so we had a hole just big enough in our throat plate for the needle to go down in one position.
Right.
Then we got a zigzag machine and we started getting that slot.
Right.
So that the needle could go back and forth, even though it still started, in a straight stitch position, was still in the middle of that slot. So what has happened, Mallory?
What has happened? Well, I also just want to say, when I first started learning to sew,
and this is a really good question.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so glad Rory asked it. When I first started learning to sew, like on you have an old Bernina. It's the first machine I learned to sew on.
Okay.
Back in the day. Yep, center needle position is what I was
That's
always...
how it started out. Even though it had a slot in the throat plate, it was capable of zigzag. Yes.
And I zigzagged, and I used decorative stitches, and I was all about, stuff like that.
Yeah, she was all about trying anything she could.
At a young age. And then I remember then working in the shop and having the baby locks and seeing that they would often open up. When I say open up, like when you turn them on and you press the screen after it starts singing.
And I think you're saying open up because it's a computerized machine, right?
When you press the start menu. No, anyway. They would often go over to the left. And then I had a lot of people who didn't like that.
Right.
And so Baby Lock started adding a feature where you could say start it in the center.
Right.
It could be your default position.
Right.
Okay. So that was interesting that they kind of got that feedback. But then I learned even more in my years working at the sewing machine dealership about why the machines would default over to the left.
The far left,
Yeah, and so here's the deal. On a machine where it defaults to the left, and on many modern machines, that especially ones that have embroidery, but not all of them
Or
have
decorative
embroidery.
stitches.
Yeah,
Mhm.
with this, but a lot of machine embroidery machines that do computerized embroidery will have this. The needle starts over to the left because that is where embroidery happens. Okay, that is where the needle is positioned during the machine embroidery. So the hoop is moving and the needle's just moving up and down and up and down. And the hoop is moving. And you'll even notice, Rory, if you maybe raise your presser foot and take off your presser foot, like snap off that sole, there is a nick in the throat plate. So you'll see ZD's been talking about the slot where the needle can swing from left to right, left to right, left to right. And you'll see on the left, what I would call like toward the back of the machine, the part that's, further away from you, it looks like there is a nick in the throat plate. And what this is it's actually a little more room to decrease friction and thread breakage while the machine's going up and down for 1,500 stitches per minute for hours, if you're stitching out a bunch of stuff.
So when we used to do professional embroidery,
Yeah.
industrial embroidery,
Mhm.
this was before machines, home
Home
machines did
machines
this,
did it.
right? And they would call the embroidery machines actually punch machines
Yeah.
because the hoop moved, not the needle.
And it just punched.
So all it did was punch, 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 and you were being programmed as to how the hoop moved.
Yeah, absolutely. So
And it was a DOS program too. Go ahead.
and the reason that you want to embroider over there, is also for support.
Right.
Okay. So when you have a needle all the way over to the left or all the way over to the right, you're getting more support. You're getting it on like 270 degrees of the
Right.
needle versus.
So you're getting the front of the
180.
fabric
Yeah.
and the back of the fabric, and one side of the fabric is being supported by the throat plate and the foot.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. So.
Where if you have that middle slot,
Uh-huh.
or the middle position
Position.
and a slot, you're only being supported in the front and in the back.
Yep.
So that's why when you see a machine that says it has a single stitch plate,
Right.
it's that one hole, and you'll have a single stitch foot will have one little
A straight
slot.
right. Stitch foot. Yeah, yeah. So that's really it can be very nice for that reason. So that is the justification I got. It seems very like good PR. Doesn't it sound really nice when I say it? So I don't know if that's really the reason, but that's
No, I think it really is the reason, because what would be the reason for them to do that?
Right.
Yeah.
So you can still, though, I was so used to having it in the middle for so long
Mhm.
that I would move it. Okay, I
okay.
would
Uh-huh.
change that setting on my baby lock for a long time. And then when I learned though about more support, I started sewing
Right.
with the needle over to the left for straight stitching now. But we're going to talk about your question, Rory, about like what's the default and what corresponds to my seam allowance. So
Right.
we're going to get there, okay? I also wanted to bring up that on some of the more advanced baby lock machines, the zigzags, you'll see two zigzag stitches that look the same
Right.
on the screen, and you're like, well, what is this?
Well, and doesn't it have like 4 straight stitches?
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It will be two zigzags
Uh-huh.
that theoretically are like the same stitch. It's just back and forth, back
Right.
and forth. But one of them begins in the center, and when you increase the width, it increases it by the same increment
On
out,
each side.
out from the center.
Okay,
on
out
each
from
side.
the
You
center
got it.
instead of out from one side.
That's right.
Right.
And then there's another zigzag where it will always start from the left.
Right.
So, the swing over to the left is always over there at the farthest point, and then it will just increase over to the right. So you're getting some
Right.
support over there. So that's some really,
Right. So
that's some very fine tuning.
Right. So we work on a Destiny too,
Uh-huh.
a lot, most of the time for our
Yeah, they won't send us a
for our
Solaris.
yeah. Well, it was in the mail supposedly, but anyway, so the stitch swing or the stitch width, the maximum is 7.7.
No, seven.
Is
Just
seven. Is
Yeah.
7, right? So when you bring up a straight stitch, it will have the needle position as being 3.5.
If it's in the center.
Right. I'm saying that's the default
Yeah.
for a straight stitch. Now, if it's
Well, no,
over,
because it defaults to the left. And so
it depends on the stitch.
Well, but you're saying defaulting. When you open up the machine and it
Mhm.
defaults to the left, it'll say 0.
Right, but there is a stitch that defaults to
Yes,
3.5,
so
and that is the center.
that's right.
So if you look down there, now obviously, if you don't have a machine that has these digital readouts, you know you
Right.
don't see that, but you can basically sort of look down there and go, oh, I'm already to the left because it says 0, or oh, I'm in the center because it says 3.5.
And then on a baby lock, and this is true for several different types of computerized machines, when you're on a straight stitch and you change the width, it doesn't turn into a zigzag stitch. It moves the needle position. Okay, so just like you were saying, okay, when you have that straight stitch oriented in the center, it'll say 3.5 is the width, and when you have that straight stitch oriented to the left, it says 0. Now, on some older machines, when you choose a straight stitch and then you change the width, it turns into a zigzag.
You're changing the width of the stitch,
which
right?
makes total sense.
Right.
Okay, like it makes total sense.
Okay, so
But hold on.
Yeah.
So if you have a machine that you think it doesn't have more needle positions, it might allow you to move your straight stitch
Mhm.
over for whatever reason you want to move it by
Right.
using the stitch width.
So if I'm starting out in the center at 3.5 and I think that I have measured out like a 1/2 inch seam allowance and I'm like, oh no, I want it to be a 1/4 inch and I want to use my same landmarks. I just want to move my needle over.
That's
Right?
Right.
And I will come up with a new position that's maybe 2.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay, and then
Public service announcement. However confused you are, you can go to your owner's manual
well,
because machines are different.
let's just get to that part because
Right.
Lori says, "Well, what is it? What's the default for my machine?" You have to go to your owner's manual
Or your dealer.
or your dealer.
Right.
You will have to go.
And your dealer may need to go to your owner's manual depending on how long
then-
they've been selling that machine.
I will also tell you that we have this Destiny here, and it has 2 sets of seam
Yes,
allowance
it does.
markings. Okay, so it has a set of seam allowance markings for the left needle position and a set of seam allowance markings for the center needle position. Do I every so often have to get out my sewing gauge and check and see and remember?
Well, it also has
Maybe.
centimeters and inches.
Yeah. Well, it just has it like
Right.
yeah, it does. You're totally right.
No, it does.
You're totally right. And then it highlights the 1/4 inch, it highlights the 1 inch,
So what happens when I'm sewing at 3 a.m. and I'm confused and I'm like, well, my other machine,
Yeah.
Whatever. I get out my seam gauge
Get out a ruler.
and I go, my needle's here and the edge of my fabric's here. What is my seam allowance? That's what it is.
Right.
Right.
Or I go I
Right.
measure from the machine, and then get a
So
landmark.
here's one of my little tricks, though, right?
Mhm.
If there is a guide, a slot that I always use, I put a little red fingernail polish in it, right?
Yeah.
And wipe it off the top, and that red fingernail polish will stay in that little crevice. And that's a good standard for me because I'm like, oh, that's my 5/8. If I'm in this position and I am doing this, this is my 5/8.
That's right. And that
Because they look the same too. They all look the same.
that old Bernina that you started me out sewing on when I was 5 years old, the 5/8 is red.
Because
because-
I made it red.
Oh, I thought they were already.
No,
I
I
thought
made it red.
some of them are red already.
No,
That we
if,
would
if
sell.
you look in this drawer right
It's
here,
okay. Well,
there's some
that what's
little
going
bar
on?
of red fingernail polish.
that's
yeah.
30 years old.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it can be real old fingernail polish too. It doesn't
Oh,
matter.
and then if those of you who maybe you came from the quilting world and you're like, oh, listen to ZD and Mallory talking about that 5/8 inch seam allowance, and that's so silly. 5/8 of an inch is 1.5 centimeters. So it makes a whole lot more sense over in metric land.
That's right.
If you're like, who the hell thought up 5/8 of an inch for seam allowance? Because
Right.
I've often thought that to
well,
myself.
the reason you've got 1/4 inch seam allowance is because quilting is considered quilting started here.
yeah, right.
Piecing,
right.
piecing, not quilting, but
yes,
piecing.
Yes.
Piecing started in America,
Yeah.
right? And in fact, our big resurgence of quilting happened okay, in 1976 around the bicentennial.
Right.
And that came all back around again, and the sewing industry grabbed onto that and marketed it to
Boom.
you.
Yeah.
Bam.
So I just want to let you all know that 5/8
Right.
isn't some weird, thing. And actually, there are some garment drafters out there who are from the U.S. and they'll occasionally use a 1/2 inch seam allowance.
Well, and I use a 1/2 inch
And-
on accessories and home deck all the time.
Yeah, and I'm like, I totally get it, and that's
Right.
only 1/8 of an inch,
Right.
But however, a lot of your machines are they're formatted
Right.
to highlight that 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so Rory, look in your manual, see if it tells you about that, but also put your needle all the way over to the left and measure and see, oh, this set of markings is for my
Right.
left position. This set is for my right. Decide where you like to sew most of the time. Get out some fingernail polish. Mark it. Do what you need to do. Because I have to say that occasionally I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. Got to make sure I'm doing the right thing because I have old habits. or
It happens to me
something.
on the serger and the cover stitch machines.
Oh, well, those
all
are
the time.
different.
I have
Those
to,
are different.
I have, but I have to measure all the time. I'm like, this is the 1/4 inch when my landmark was here, right? I have to measure it
When
occasionally.
the serger, the blade moves the guides.
Right,
So if you're messing around with your width and stuff,
right.
you oftentimes need to measure because if you're messing around with your width, you are changing.
Actually,
stuff.
I'm gonna go over there on that ovation and make myself a red mark too.
Oh.
But go ahead.
All right, get out that fingernail.
The clear foot is really hard to see the little numbers on.
Uh huh.
The little bumps. So I take a Sharpie and I mark
Okay,
my
yeah.
little thing
Well,
sometimes.
I just have to say that when I cover stitch, I often use just the seam in the machine or the edge of the foot. So-
Right. Well, I sometimes use that little hash mark that's on the tip of the foot.
yeah.
Okay. So then I'm like, I think I'm watching it, and then I'm going, am I on it? Or, I don't know. The clear foot I think, is sometimes hard for me to landmark on the hash marks.
I agree. I've been thinking about this. I've been trying to eliminate single-use plastics from our
Right.
house and like packaging. I mean, I'm talking about bringing my own mason jars to the grocery store, making them weigh them, and getting bulk stuff. Like that kind of annoying person is who I am becoming. And if you're
Oh
one
my
of them,
God.
I'm so proud of you. Okay, it's
Why
really
don't you
hard.
sew yourself some bags?
Well, but in the bulk, like I don't want to put a bunch of rice in like a
Why not?
fabric
That's how it used to
bag.
come.
Well, but I'm gonna put
People
it in
used to
glass
make
anyway,
dresses
or
out
whatever.
of the
Yeah,
bags
no,
they
I
came
guess
in.
I could. And they wouldn't weigh anything. But anyway, I just think it's more secure. Okay, whatever. Moving on. But I was thinking about plastic
Guys,
and
I'm
sewing.
I'm not bringing mason jars to the grocery store just in case you were interested.
Yeah. So I was thinking about acrylic rulers. I was like, I love acrylic
Right,
rulers.
because you can see through them.
And I'm like, I know we used to not have them before.
That's right.
But an acrylic ruler is not
Well,
a
it's
single
not
use
single use.
plastic.
See I think that's the other thing people get hung up on. If it's not single use,
you can keep it
Yeah.
out of a landfill for quite a long time.
Right.
Now, I don't want to get all into this because there's so much.
I
but
don't either.
when you start to think about this stuff, because I know it's on people's minds, I think the number one, let's go off on this tangent. Don't do all or nothing thinking on
Right.
this stuff.
On anything.
On anything. Because if I think to myself, oh, you know what? I think I can eliminate like toothpaste tubes because I'm going to get those tablets, that foam up
Okay,
in your mouth.
I don't get
Hold
that
on.
at all.
Hold on.
I don't get that at
What do you
all.
mean you don't get it?
Well, because they have to come in a container.
They come in a recyclable, compostable paper container.
No, I've seen them in little jars.
Well, if they
Yeah.
come, so that's part
So you have
of the
to
thing.
pick, right?
Is
So
the
you have
packaging.
to pick how it packages.
Yes, the packaging is important.
Right.
Anyway, okay, all right. But when I think about that, okay, and then I think, oh my gosh, I just went and bought some elastic and it wasn't, well, first of all, how's the elastic made? I'm using, polyester. We say to use polyester thread, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, one thing at a time. I'm not going to then all of a sudden stop any efforts at being environmentally
and
friendly.
there are some things you don't want to disintegrate.
It's very true. You kind of think about that.
People get mad if it disintegrates.
That's right. People
Yep.
don't want to have dead animals in their bolts of fabric,
No.
so people wrap them in plastic.
That's right.
So I was thinking about that.
Whatever.
So anyway, if you are thinking about being more sustainable with your sewing and stuff like that. Just don't let someone make you feel judged. Don't let someone make you feel like you're not doing enough or like you're doing too much, and just do what you can do, and listen. So anyway, that's been coming up in my life for me lately. Okay, so let's take a break real quick. Did we answer all the seam allowance questions with that, or did I go off on
I
my
think so.
tangent?
But I want to bring up one little thing that I
Yeah.
wrote down. We talked about Mallory started sewing, and this did come up in the group. Actually, somebody wanted to stand up and sew with their machine, and
Uh-huh.
they said, well, my cord won't reach. My pedal won't reach. And I said, put it on a box.
Uh-huh.
And the person said, well, if I put it on a box, it really won't reach. So what I meant to say
Uh-oh.
is you can put that foot pedal on a box or on something that brings it up higher, right? So when we were teaching kids to sew and Mallory sewed, sometimes I would have to put a box on the floor and put the foot pedal,
Uh-huh.
not because the foot pedal didn't reach, but Mallory's leg didn't reach.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, okay, that's a good tangent. Oh, I just
thought it was something that, it came up in the group.
I just also wanted to say that I opened up the Destiny screen over here just to kind of look and make sure I was right about that zigzag. So there's the zigzag that, grows out from the center.
Right.
There's a zigzag that goes over from the left, and there's a zigzag that comes out from the right.
Right.
This is a precision
Yes.
machine,
Yes.
everybody.
Yes,
No,
yes,
it's
yes.
nutso. Okay, so I have to say that I really
And
haven't.
isn't there one that secures with a back stitch and one that
Oh,
secures with
yes. Yes,
So
that's a whole other thing.
we have machines that start out with sort of a minimal menu to an extravagant menu.
And you can really customize it. Well, and I think about, Mom, I was just basting power mesh onto something
Right.
as a pocket. And I made myself a zigzag and I moved it all the way over to the right.
Uh-huh.
So I could have used that zigzag that would have, what
Right.
do you think? It's like I want to use the word kerning, but that's not the right word. I'm having trouble coming up with, but it's,
Kerning is probably not the right
it
word.
originates from
Right.
the right. It is
That's a good one.
justified.
Justified.
Justified for the
Right,
There we go.
justified.
Thank you. Gosh.
Well, another thing is I can set this machine to open up and have a center default.
We do have it that way.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, and
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I think it's because it says initial position is the setting.
Oh, okay. Right.
And I think it's because they started shipping them center
Did
justified.
they? Okay.
I love this word justified that I remembered.
Yeah.
I think that they started doing that because people were.
Freaking out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
But so,
But I move my needle all the way
in the more sophisticated machines, you can choose how your opening stitch.
Yeah, okay. One more thing I was going to say. So we talked about the stitch width. So our needle swing is 7. If you got a straight stitch in the center, it's 3.5 because 3.5 is half of 7, right? If it's all the way over to the left, it's a 0. If it's all the way over to the right, it's a 7. But on top of that, okay, this is where I think...
Now she's going to confuse me.
I think we've gotten a little too...
in depth here?
No, I think the machine companies have, wanted to customize things too much for us.
Uh-huh.
Because when you have a 0.5 millimeter increments here,
Right.
then you got 0.51. You know, you should have 14 needle positions
Right.
just using the stitch width.
Yes.
However, then they have left-right shift, which moves in increments of 1/4 millimeter.
I know.
So it's too many. Is that 20? Well, I mean, it's a
You
it's
know,
28 needle positions.
it could.
That's
It could.
maybe too many.
And I mean, well, you know what though? I have used them.
I know, but it's a lot.
Especially when I'm top stitching something,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I just need
I
to
know.
go over that
I
one
know.
little bitty, I need to go over a thread's breadth.
Like 1/4 of a
Right.
millimeter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we've got the machine for you.
Well, and you know why I've used it? Because I had it and I could do it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but it's quite. I mean,
Right.
it really is, and people are kind of wondering what's going on with a machine that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. If you want to get real precise, it will allow you to do that. All right, let's take a break and move on to question number 2. Hey, ZD, wouldn't it be cool if everyone who listened to this podcast could learn how to make perfectly fitting leggings directly from you, the leggings expert?
Well, yes, Mal. That's why we produce the Made to Measure Leggings class. I teach anyone, no matter their age, ability, or gender, to make perfectly fitting leggings based on their measurements. And if someone is feeling particularly generous, they can make leggings for anyone who they can get to stand still long enough to measure.
You, yes, you can get immediate access to all the videos and course materials in the Made to Measure Leggings class by going to sewhere.com/leggings. This online class allows you to complete the process at your own pace, and you own it forever, so you can rewatch it as many times as you need.
Stop struggling with the leggings that roll down or sag in the wrong places. I'll be your guide as you create leggings that are made especially for you.
No matter what your equipment or skill level, ZD covers everything from measuring, drafting, cutting, and construction on a sewing machine or serger in this class. Go to sewhere.com/leggings and get started today. Sewing out loud. Hi, we're back. All right, this second question.
Kind of.
We're back.
We hope we're back.
By the way, the other thing I'm doing to reduce plastic. No, I'm.
Let's shut her up. Anyway, go ahead.
You're being mean.
I am not.
Actually,
I'm being realistic.
You are being mean.
No.
Okay, moving on. So, Adina asks. She posted a picture of this like vest that denim biker jacket. Excuse me. In progress.
I know. I want all of her.
It's really
I
cute.
want all of her little patches. She has. Yeah.
So Adina asks about her jacket. She says, if I were to line this denim biker jacket, what would you suggest I line it with? I don't like any of the lining materials I have. I thought about flannel. I do have some in black. The coat will have black leather trim around the neckline and black leather shoulder epaulettes. I haven't decided on the exact details for the two-piece sleeves, but I have a Rosie the Riveter patch. And this denim biker jacket has like a Wonder Woman patch on it, and it says behind every
It's like
successful
heroic women.
Yes, it says behind every successful woman is herself, and well-behaved women rarely make history, and then warning, educated black woman. So
Okay.
Adina's rocking it.
So Rosie the Riveter,
But yeah,
actually the woman who was
like modeled.
well, right. She not only modeled, she was a riveter.
Uh-huh.
Okay, she did do this. She just died
Oh.
this past week on March 4th, 2000. She was 95 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So she was actually like the same age as like my father, people that were in World War II. And so the women, and she was actually sort of like upper echelon, like she could have went to college, but instead she went ahead and went into the factory and worked, and did her American duty, so to speak, or whatever. But she also, what she became, is she was a big philanthropic person for PBS TV.
Oh.
Like, so she continued like throughout her life to sort of like serve the public.
Well, awesome.
Yeah, no, it was really neat. And her name was Rosalind.
Rosalind.
So,
Walker, is that what you said?
Walter.
Walter,
I think
excuse
it's
me.
Walter.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, wait, let me look because I could. Yeah, it was Walter.
Excuse me.
So she, they coined her Rosie the Riveter.
Right.
So when I was growing up, in my little cul-de-sac, there was a lady who was a Rosie the Riveter.
She was a riveter. Her name
She
was
was
Rosie.
she was a riveter. Her name was Grace. Okay, and we lived by McDonnell Douglas that
Right.
built a lot of big jets and things and airplanes and bombers and all kinds of stuff. And she stayed on after the war because she was only like 4'11",
Uh-huh.
and she could get into like
she
the
useful?
nose of planes and things where the bigger men like couldn't. So she stayed a riveter like all her life.
Well, awesome.
Isn't that funny?
Okay,
Yeah.
so some good tangents on this
Yeah,
episode, I
yeah.
think. Moving on, we have done a podcast about linings. We have done one in the past, but Adina, this is what I would ask my friend if they were lining a jacket. I would say, what kind of protection are you looking for? What are you going to wear under the jacket?
Does it need to be insulation?
Okay, but
Right.
what clothing are you going to wear under the jacket is
Right,
what I'm
that's true.
asking.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of. Because, and we'll get to why I'm asking that. And then how pretty do you want it to be?
Yeah. Do you want to make a statement with
Right.
your lining?
Okay, because some people were saying, oh, well, if you want it to be warm, use flannel. If you want it to be this, use this. There are a lot of denim jackets out there that are unlined.
Right.
So technically, if
right.
you wanted
you don't have
to,
or you can line just the body and not the sleeves.
That's right. So there's, one extreme answer is
Right.
just not to line it. And, there are some denim jackets that people wear as, light warmth
Right.
inside of a building.
Right.
Okay.
Almost like a cardigan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like a light sweater.
It's you're wearing it over a t-shirt. It's
Right.
just a denim jacket. Now she says denim biker jacket. So is she
Right.
going to be like on a bike?
Right, that's what
she-
I was wondering. Does she
yeah.
want like it to like not be pervious to the wind?
Yes.
you know?
So wind block. People
Right.
are asking about wind
Or
blocking.
is bike she referred to biker as a style versus a function?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So you can buy like the real deal
You could have a quilt.
Protective
You could have a quilted lining.
stuff though
Right.
too, like the stuff that's plastic.
Right.
You could buy that.
You mean like nylon?
No, like they're
plastic.
hard. It's like the
Oh,
hard.
you mean
I'm
on the
talking like,
outside?
No,
Oh, the
it's
inside.
inside.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, don't think she's going that extreme, but anyway. So you could have that. But here's the deal, you could have more than one. Because what I am thinking about is if this is a denim jacket that I would wear another warm thing with,
Yeah.
like if this is a biker jacket and I wear a fleece under it, I don't want it to have a flannel lining too.
Right.
And maybe I'd want the lining to be a little slick so that I could get out of
Right.
it easy. Because if you have a flannel lining, if anybody has ever gotten into a flannel line
Actually,
jacket,
I have a denim jacket that's flannel lined.
okay, it's hard to get off sometimes.
Well, if you have something against it that it hugs, yes.
yes, because the flannel kind of grips on
Right.
things,
Does everybody,
right?
anybody quilters out there have a flannel board? You know what happens.
Yes, exactly.
stuff sticks
So
on
so
it.
it's good for some things, but
Right.
oh my gosh, one time in elementary school, someone spilled something on me, like a bunch of paint on my pants or water. I can't remember what, but I had to like borrow pants.
Right.
And they had these flannel lined jeans.
Yeah. They're warm.
It was the most oppressive thing I've
Yes,
ever
they're
worn in
very
my
warm.
life. I mean, they might not have been quite the right size too. I don't know what
Right.
the deal was, but I remember going to like the nurse's office and getting these
That's
pants.
what they had for you, huh?
I was like, this is terrible.
They were warm.
yeah. And they stood up on their own and they were hard to get off, So
Well, there's all different weights of flannel too.
yes. So there are different weights of flannel, but what if she did want the warmth of flannel, but she wanted it to be slick? Could you do flannel and like a slicky lining fabric?
What if she wanted to open her jacket and there were metallic threads in her?
Yes.
See, I would.
What if she finds Rosie the Riveter fabric? to put
Oh
on the
my
inside?
gosh! Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So cotton lining,
Right.
it's not a lot of lining fabric. So Adina says she doesn't like the lining fabrics she has.
So
I don't know exactly her
so
inventory.
if you are buying fabric that is marketed or labeled lining fabric, that is a fabric I rarely buy.
That's right.
In fact, the last time I remember buying lining fabric, I was actually making a cape and it was made of the fabric.
Yeah.
I was using it as fabric. I do not like lining quality fabric usually.
So ZD is a big fan of lining with
Real
quote,
fabric.
yeah, or quote
Yes.
unquote untraditional choices.
Yes.
So Adina, sorry if I'm making an assumption here, but I'm just gonna assume that she's got kind of that slicky, thin.
When you
stuff
say things to line,
in
yeah,
her
when you said
stash.
lining, we're thinking, is it something that was labeled lining when you bought it or marketed as lining? And like I said, we don't use that.
Some people I actually enjoy. So I know I said the flannel was bulky. I've gotten jackets that are lined with like a very thin sweatshirt material.
I like rayon,
okay.
like a real nice
Yeah,
rayon.
yeah.
That feels real good. Yeah.
And that sweatshirt stuff, that was a little stretchy.
Mhm.
And it even felt kind of good
Uh-huh.
in there. So there are just so many things to consider. And there are some very thin products out there, like the Thinsulate stuff.
Right.
And it will reflect your body heat
Yes.
back toward you
Yes.
with very little bulk.
Right.
Okay, and you were talking about only doing or doing different treatments to the bodice versus the sleeves.
Right.
So that is always an option too, if you're going to.
I'm sort of a big right now on like vest.
yeah.
Like outdoor vest.
You're a
Like
vest
wearing the
person.
quilted vest and my arms are hanging out because like I have more freedom with my arms than it being in a coat. So
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of into that, making sure my core is warm,
Right.
and my arms don't have to be quite as warm, I guess, or something.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So, yeah, you could get more. You could put less material into the arm too.
The other thing you could
Made it
have is
easy to
a
move.
zip out lining.
Oh, well.
Ooh,
Well.
ooh, or snap in or zip out or whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to do it. Sometimes when you make your clothes more, like I always kind of go through this in my mind with planning a wardrobe. It's like, do you make a piece that has so many components to it, or do you like break out those components? I think about this with like bodysuits. So a shirt, if I just made a shirt, I could wear it probably 2 days before I wash it. Okay.
Sure.
But like if my crotch is on something, it's gonna get washed. If it's just my crotch, you know, on the like
if a
underwear.
part gets stinkier or dirtier, easier, you probably are laundering it more.
Yeah, so then it's like, oh, I have to wash this shirt too because it's on this bodysuit.
Right.
And then it's sort of like, okay, do I want a sort of outer shell that is very wind resistant, but then I have another garment that's just kind of a cardigan and I can combine them if I want? Or do I make one garment that's got all of these properties, and I don't want to wear a cardigan under it because it's so big and,
That's why I like the vest. They're easy to drive in.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. So that is just something that goes through my brain. And you can have all the things. You can make them all, okay? You don't, you can give it a try or whatever. But I always think about that with bodysuits. I'm like, I want to make some bodysuits, but it's like.
So you're saying like a jumpsuit?
No.
Right.
Like.
Oh, a bodysuit, like.
Panty.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Like a leotard with the snaps in the bottom.
Yeah. That's what I call a bodysuit. I know that obviously around the world and around this studio, those words can be confusing.
Okay. Well, people use onesie.
Singlet. Singlet's a word that
People use onesies for like pajamas.
Okay, I'm having deja vu. We have done this before on this podcast.
Yeah. A onesie to me was a little baby garment, and it was the one that it was
a bodysuit.
It was a bodysuit.
Yeah.
It was a T-shirt that snapped under the crotch.
No, we have had this conversation
have we?
on this podcast.
We're deja
I'm almost
vuing.
certain.
Okay.
Okay, but this is.
But it's not a lining.
It's just I think I see sometimes lingerie too that's like marketed as everyday lingerie. It's not just like a fun, maybe like it's a sexy thing or a costume piece.
Right.
But it's a bra.
Or a date night.
Yes. Yeah. It's a bra connected, a very nice, supportive bra.
Right.
And it's on a bodysuit.
Right.
And I think, a bra I would wear several times before
without being laundered. Right.
Laundering, maybe. But it's like, if that thing's snapping around my crotch,
Probably going to get washed every day.
I guess I could just wash the bottom.
You can just wash the crotch. That's true. I've done that, especially on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Just wash the crotch, then it's going to be dry for the next day.
Sure. But it is something that crosses my mind. And then I'm like, do I need to make things that snap on and blah, 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 whatever. And then I overthink and I don't
How
make
many people
anything.
do you think like this, Mallory?
I think it's a lot of people.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about
No,
that.
it is a lot of people.
Oh, no. It's just the people that sew.
No, it's not because what I wanted to say was, that Straight and Curly podcast that I mentioned?
Yeah.
One of the women who runs it has like a group or like her book that's going to come out is called Overthinkers Anonymous. And it's like what she has built her career around is people who overthink things. And I'm like, we probably all do it on some level. But just bringing that back around to...
Lining.
We're
supposed to be talking about lining.
It's really easy to overthink because you're lining.
That's
right.
Which obviously Adina was doing.
Yeah, she was doing a great job overthinking it. And, whether or not you want to make a bodysuit or a shirt, and whether or not your one plastic-free effort is just negated by the rest of your terrible, wasteful life. You could think about that, right? So, man, we've been doing the real cheerful podcasts lately.
I know, we're such downers.
It's nihilistic, okay, is what we are.
Is that what we are?
Yes. I think that is unfortunately, I think Derek and I drop into that sometimes. We're like, nothing even matters,
That's, yeah.
Occasionally.
I think I mentioned to your father the other day that about something
that
he
was
no, he was talking about, I go, you'll be worm food by then, so why are you worried about it? Like, yeah.
We'll compost our dead bodies.
That's right. But I mean,
Okay.
sometimes you just go, yeah.
Well, it can be difficult to think about certain types of things, especially the way our brains are wired, or when you're not feeling effective, or something. But, in your journey to the perfect lining, or to your...
I can't believe I'm even part of this.
Or your lower waist household, just one step at a time. The worst thing for Adina would be for her to, never finish the jacket, right?
That's right.
And that's not going to happen because she, makes things all the time.
Right.
She's going to be amazing.
Go, Adina. Make that jacket.
Yeah.
Show us the lining. I want to see it.
We're going to...
You better post that lining. I'm telling you. After this podcast, I want to see it. I want to see the lining.
She's a very active group member, but I don't know that she is a big podcast listener.
Oh.
Because there are some people who are one and not the other.
Right.
So we'll have to let her know.
Fred, she must listen to the podcast the minute it's published.
She's in the Venn diagram. She's right in the middle.
Yeah. She can tell. She
Aaron,
also repeats things. Yeah. And no, Fred
Aaron
repeats
Beauchamp.
things to me that I don't know I've said.
Yeah, that occasionally will happen to me.
She'll say, blah, 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 the podcast. I have to go listen to the podcast to make sure that I really said it.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed this discussion. So the group is almost this fun. It's almost as fun as listening to us in person or, whatever. Oh, you know what I also love? Several of you have sent me that picture. It's a meme, and it says, how I feel listening to a podcast. And it's a person sitting there eating cereal, and she's smiling, and she's next to a billboard of other laughing people.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm like, absolutely. And I am your friend. If you think I'm your friend, because I know that when I'm listening to the podcast, I listen to it. I'm
That's
like,
right.
Those people are my friend.
That's right.
They knew.
That's right.
They knew that I
well,
was thinking about that.
I'll have these little conversations with people in the group sometimes. Get started, and I'm like, I'm acting like I'm her best friend, and I know her like, and she can't do anything without me, and I can't do anything without her, and all I've ever done is exchanged a few words, on this in this group. It's really funny.
We'll have our in-person event here, sometime, maybe in the next year or so, and you can all be our in-person friends, and you can be like, I've met them. They
are flesh.
It's not weird that I think they're my friend because I've met them. Okay, love you all so much. And if you've ever been tempted to send me that meme and you're like, oh, she would think that was weird. It's like, no, I totally get it.
She is that meme.
Yeah, I think, who sent it recently? Was it Lauren? Anyway, okay. Well, have a lovely day, everybody. We hope you enjoyed our discussion of these topics. I'm so glad I got to give my needle to the left spiel once more. It always makes my heart
just
happy.
Exercise
I
those,
love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, ZD, take it away.
So long and so happy.
Thanks for listening to Sewing Out Loud. For even more expert sewing advice, visit sewhere.com.